Hello guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Andrews, and today I want to share with you guys how to create a network scanner. Um, as I've said in my previous videos, I have created this platform mainly for me to document and show you guys how I break into the cybersecurity field. I have realized most people they don't tell us what their journey has been like, and I want to change the way or the narrative and then show you guys how as I progress every single day in the things that I do. So let's quickly take a look at the project. The objectives for the tool that we want to create is that we want to be able to identify all devices that are on the network. I mean, devices that are connected on the network range. And I term those devices as active devices. And when we identify it, we want to know their MAC address, the host name. So assuming the device is connected to the internet, sometimes if you create a hotspot and you check the devices connected to your hotspot, they have some peculiar names. If there is any name like um, maybe Andrew's PC, Andrew's HP, Andrew's VirtualBox. It gives us an idea of what type the device is or whoever owns it. At this stage um, of whatever work we are doing, whether it is pen test work, auditing, we need to get as much information as we need. Okay, so we get a host name, we determine what manufacturer it is based on the MAC address. We will use a tool called Manuf, a library in Python. This project will be created with Python, library in Python, which uses Manuf to determine what manufacturer, which uses the database, Wireshark's OUI database to determine what manufacturer the device, who manufactured the device based on MAC address, okay? And then in the next step, we'll be able to determine what ports are open on that device. The network protocol we'll be using is TCP, but it is very simple to use UDP. There is a very simple way that you create an IP packet, send it out, and then get to know what type of protocol is available or what type of protocol you can use for that particular port, be it TCP or UDP. But we'll mainly be sticking to TCP in this project. We will determine the services and then the banners. And based on all this information, we will try to check for CVEs, common vulnerability and exploits that are currently known out there. And I've divided this project into 5 parts. We will just brief about the setup of the environment. We will talk about initialization of the program, how to be able to interact Python with a command line interface through a library called Argparse, and then we also move on to, oh, this is a mistake. This should be fingerprinting one. And then we also move on to determine the active devices, OS detection. There are cases that you can use the nmap to determine the OS, or there's a tool called I don't know the name, if it's POF or P0F, I don't know the name, yeah. And then, but we are not going to use those things. We are going to determine the OS based on the TTL, and as I said, the manufacturer and the rest. Okay, so without much ado, let's get started in developing, in talking about the setup. So for the setup, for the, for the virtualization environment, we will be creating it with VirtualBox. It is an open source software under the GNU GPL license, so you can use it, and it is available for most of the popular operating systems out there, Windows, macOS, and for Linux distributions, Solaris. It is easy to install. There are already a lot of tutorials out there. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. It's very simple installing it in Windows, and with a little bit of care, you can easily install it on Linux too. Just have to know what type of distribution you are using, if it's Debian, Fedora, and the rest. Okay, so you follow these instructions exactly as it is. Starting from here, copy everything, just put it in the terminal and just keep going. And then you finally be able to install it. Okay, all right. So if you are still having issues, please leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll do a tutorial later on how to install the Linux. And then I will advise that for us to get an environment to test uh, our program, you'll be using Metasploitable 2. There's currently Metasploitable 3. Okay, so when you come to the Metasploitable 2 website, you can use any of these to download it. You click on download, and when it downloads, I already have it, so I'm not going to download it. When it download, let me show you guys. When you download, you have a zip file, the zip file. When you extract it, this will be the content of the zip file. Okay, so I will quickly show you how to be able to use it in VirtualBox. Alright, and for Metasploitable 3, it uses Vagrant to spawn it up, and it's quite nice. You don't have to do much. Just follow these instructions. Just follow it, and if you already have all the requirements, all this installed, it will the background will take care of everything for you. The background script will take care of everything for you. So you wouldn't have much problem. As I said, if you're having issues, please leave a comment in the comment section and then I will help you guys out with that. So for the network configuration, I wouldn't want to use, let me show you. Okay, so assuming I'm going to use, let's say this virtual machine. Most people might use bridge adapter, but I'm not going to use bridge adapter because the wireless network I'm connected to has other people on it, and I don't have authorization to be pinging and searching and scanning their devices. We are being ethical over here. So if you want to create a very safe network environment such that you have Metasploit Table 2 running on our virtual machine, maybe Metasploit Table 3. This will be our host machine, and a Kali virtual machine that we are going to mostly use in creating the tool. And we want to make sure that all these devices will be able to talk to each other and at the same time also talk to the internet, right? So that will be our goal. Okay, let's see how we are going to do that. To do that it's fairly simple. Come to tools. Okay, before I continue, I will stress that please make sure that extensions, and then you come here and install the virtual machine extension pack if you don't already have it. Okay, these are guest additions to help in drag and drop from your host machine to your virtual machines and copy and paste back and forth. It helps quite a lot. So let's look at the creating the network. It is very simple to create a network. Just click on this create. It will bring up the, okay, let me show you guys. So you get this, you click yes. I'm not going to use it, okay, and then that's it. It has been created. Enable the DHCP server so that I dynamically assign IP address to all devices on the network. You click apply and that's it. Okay, 192.168.196.1. I'm not going to use it. I'll remove it because I already have a lot of them over here. I'm going to use this that I already have, 192.168.227.1. And then I'm going to configure the, I think this is already configured to talk on that network. Okay, you select the one that you just created, host only, Ethernet adapter number 7. Okay, so, and then I'm going to use this CTF. Should I use this? No, I'm not going to use that one. Let me use this. Okay, so I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to leave this at NAT, and then come to adapter to enable it. Select host only adapter. Okay, it's already selected, and then choose this one. So that is fairly simple. Let's test that they can talk to each other. The base memory is not correctly set. That's not 2 gigabytes. Okay, so 2048 should be roughly 2 gigabytes. Yeah, the processor should 2. Okay, so let's. My element of exploitable is still booting up. I'll pause it and wait for it to finish. So as it's loading, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code for most of the things that I'm going to do, and then you can also use PyCharm too. So let's check to see if they are done. Okay. Okay, so let's go to CD documents. Okay, and then create a new folder called network scan. Alright, so before we continue, we need to create a very safe environment so that we are going to call the environment Python 3. You use this library then to create the environment. Okay, so we are going to create the environment, activate it, source, activate. So you can see where you created a virtual environment for everything that we are going to do next. Let's check the. So I believe this one is working perfectly fine. Okay, so we have this is IP address, and let's check if we can Okay, so you can talk to Google. Okay, so let's check if you can 192.168.227.1. Perfect. You can talk to our host machine too. .4. Let's also verify that our host machine can talk to it. 227.4. Alright, our host machine too can talk to it. So we are done. Right, so Metasploitable is also up. We don't want this to take a long time, so I'm quite in a hurry to finish this. So .3, let's ping our host machine 192.168. I should have copied this and then to just that one. Alright, we can ping our host machine and we can also ping the Kali machine, and I believe that will be the same vice versa. So guys, that's it. That's for setting up our safe environment for testing and for what we are going to do next. So whilst we are waiting, I've already created a virtual environment that we are going to run our Python library in. And let me introduce to you guys the tool that we are going to be using. It is called Scapy. It helps you manipulate packets, it helps you snake packets, it helps you read pickup files and all those things. It does a lot of things to help you create all these things, and it's a great tool. That's what we are going to use um, in this project. Okay, so let's install it. Let's take a look at the documentation again and install it. So download and installation. Alright, so we want to install the basic, which is highly recommended. We want to install that one. So let's say there's something I've realized by recently, that if I just run pip install and I just run this command, it install it on the main system, which I don't understand why it's doing that since we are in this virtual environment, but we can go around that with this. So let's see. Okay, so install them and it should be done very quickly. Alright, so it is successfully installed. Let's run IPython. Once again, I'm skeptical it will run. So we'll run the command import Scapy just to test this. Import Scapy. Okay. So we've installed Scapy. So let's bring up our Visual Studio Code. Yes, I transpose this. If I don't trust myself, then who else? So we are going to create one file called main. That is where we are going to run almost every script form, and then we also create another one called scandy core.py. Okay, so we now need to import all the necessary libraries that we are going to use. But before we continue, let's configure the environment that we are going to. Let's create a large JSON file and then configure that one so that we'll be able to use it. We are going to call it scandy. We're going to call it scandy. Okay, and then taking care of everything, almost everything is perfect. Current working directory. You will need sudo. Okay, you will need, because Scapy will be using the socket of the operating system, it will always require that we have administrator privileges. Okay, so we need sudo, and what else? I think that is about it. Okay, so let me change this. Onto main. We want to specifically be running this at all times, right? So let's come here. We are going to create things. We are going to use object-oriented programming. We are going to be creating classes. So in the next step, let's import Argparse. This is the tool that we are going to use to interact with the command line interface. So class can core, and then let's initialize it. Okay, so we will import that over here. Import import Scapy code, and then we'll have main function here that does nothing. Okay, and then we go name okay, so we call our main function, and we say int done. Just to make sure that everything is running fine. Okay, okay, we need to okay done. So everything is perfect. So let's create. Before we create it, I want us to create a function that will process all argument that we will pass through the command line. Okay, so we call it argument processor. Right. So this is what we are going to use to pass the arguments, and we will provide the name of the program, which will be Scapy, the description. We will call it a network. Network scan, simple. Okay, so now we will need to add the arguments. So this is what we are going to do. This is what we are looking for. So assuming the user calls Python and then maybe the program name is Scapy. Okay, and pass the argument T. This will mean target. So an example 192.168.227. What is it? 227. What was it? Okay, so 227.3. So we just want to add a flag so that when the user passes this, our program is able to tell this is the target that it wants us to use. Okay, so you'll say parser.add argument, and then we'll pass this option, and then we'll pass the long version to which is target. And then we can specify the number of arguments. So we want that the user will be able to enter more than one target. Okay, but at least we need one, and it should be compulsory. It should be compulsory. Required is true. We want to force the user to enter it. And let's leave a help message, and that will be the target IP just can. Okay, so that will be that. And before we continue, I want us to validate the input of the target, and then do similar for the port and the rest. But I want us to do it step by step as we progress through it. Okay, so let's create a variable called cell.args, and then finally pass this whole arguments. Okay, so we will call our argument processor. Let's make it a private method. We don't want anybody being able to access it. So we will call it here self.argument processor. So what this means is when the program initializes, when we initialize this class or this object, we want this to be initialized right from the beginning, and then perform all these functions. Right. So yeah, that's how that works. Let me just create so.args call, and at least when the program initializes, I don't want any errors. Alright, so let's create in our main function, let's create a variable called Scapy core. Okay, and then print the arguments. So this will be f.args, which is this. Okay, this we want to print what we passed to it. So we come to our JSON, and then we now specify the arguments. We now specify the arguments that we need, which will be args. Okay, and we say t. Okay, and then we pass the next which will be. Alright, so let's check settings. I want to be able to I want to make sure that I don't. Okay, save this one. Okay, so let's run it. We have an error. Scanning call has no attributes acts. That's surprising. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay, so you can see it's telling us target is this. Right. So let's create an IP validator for the IP addresses. Okay. So let's call it IP validator. Okay, let's call it IP validator. So for IP in self.ads.target, okay, what this means is, you see, when we pass this to this, target is accessible by this name. Okay, you play around with this, you you might understand it, and we are looping through them because it is a list, as we can see over here. So we are looping through it, and then for each IP, I want the user to be very explicit. So I am saying that split it by using the dot as a delimiter, and we expect to get 4 sections. 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We expect to get 4 sections. So you have the condition that if the length of this is not equal to 4, if it is not equal to 4, let's import system. Okay. So if it is not equal to 4, we want to exit out of the whole program. You don't want to even continue, and then pass the message. Please enter the correct IP v4 address. Okay, I'm being specific. And then probably show let's make this an F string. Okay. So if the user does not pass the correct, we will exit out of the loop completely. Okay, so let's run it. Let's just run it and see. So nothing happens because we have 4 sections, which is correct to IPv4. What if the user make a mistake and make it 5? We don't expect that to be correct, so we want. Whoa, why are we? Oh, sorry. We have not called our IP validator anywhere in the program yet. We've not called our IP validator anywhere in the program yet. So let's call it during the initialization, which will be self.underscore IP validator. Okay, so let's run it again and see what happens. Alright, we are getting something. So please enter correct IPv4, and it's telling you this is not correct. Okay. So what did the user enters today? I'm sure you already know what the answer is. This is also an error. We are not accepting that. Okay. So that is how we will be able to validate our IP address. I don't know if you are missing anything else. Nothing is coming to mind. There's nothing that you are missing for validating our IP address. Okay, so let's talk about something very peculiar over here. So assuming a user passes, why is it not working? Okay, so assuming a user passes a CIDR or a subnet max 124 255 255 255. Yeah. Okay, so we want to be able to process this and get all the IP address in that subnet max. Okay, so we need to be able to verify it, but still you can tell that if this is wrong, our program should still tell us that that is wrong. Perfecto. Right, so we want to be able to process this. Okay, so we are going to create another function. This is a very simple one that we are going to call. What should I even call that function? I should even call that function. Okay, so let's call it this return. Okay, so let's call that function uh, let's call it IP processor. IP processor. I don't know what. I guess I have to check my nomenclature. Okay, so for IP processor, what we want to do is very simple. So we want to look through it again for IP in self dot args dot target. This is what we are going to. This is what we want to do. Let me just pass. So the user can enter this. Okay, that is perfectly correct. And we want the user to be able to also enter. We want the user to be able to also enter, assuming maybe 172. Yeah, yeah, let me go check. I have a Docker. Docker. Okay, yeah, this is for Docker 172.27. I don't have any Docker running though, but it's Docker container. Okay, so we want the user, if they passes this as their targets, we want to be able to get all the IP addresses in this network range and also get its IP address all in a single list. That's what I want to do. So we will make our IP processor a generator. Okay, so what we will say is, so what we are going to say, if you don't have this forward slash, if forward slash not in IP, okay, if it is not in IP, then please yield it because it's a normal IP address. Okay, we want to yield it. This will make it a generator. Okay, so we want to yield it, and then continue. After yielding it, please continue. But if that's not the case, if this is in, then it will come to this line. Then we want to use a tool called Scapy as the library that I showed you previously. Let me close this. So we will import Scapy but all as Scapy. I'm going to do something not Pythonic, but that's what I'm going to do. Scapy.ip. And I'm doing that mainly because during debugging mode, when there's an error, I don't want to import. Normally, this is what people do. People do from Scapy, but this is what I've seen. Or import star. So they import everything in the Scapy, and then the variable here will be cluttered. You won't be able to see the variable that you want to debug or check what's going on. So I prefer to import everything as Scapy and then be dealing with things. I already know what I'm going to need most of the time. So okay, I'll import this and then I also ICMP and then I guess that will be about it. And you have S. So let me see one. So we go to Scapy. So one. SR. We go to Scapy. Somebody might be thinking, what is the guy doing? Please you find out soon. So we will want to use Scapy. The IP. We want to get an IP packet that will help us to. Yes. Okay. So you will say for IP in IP. This is what we created over here. This referring to this. Okay. IP in IP. Make the destination let's say for I in IP. Then you will say for I in IP. What am I doing now? IP destination will go to IP. Okay. So you will want to yield either destination. So it will just yield it back and let's test it that it is working properly. So when we come to the initialization, I'm now going to create cell.target will be equal to IP processor. Okay, and that we're also going to print it out, print cell.targets. Okay, so let's run it. It's going to be very long. Okay, so you can see it's printing a generator object because we're using yield. We were not appending it to a list or any other object for that matter. So let's just say, let's just create a list and just use for finding. Okay, so list comprehension just to print it for you to see what's going on. Okay, so now we have all the IP addresses in that subnet mask or IP range, and then we also have, we should have, okay, we can see over here. I don't know if you can see it. That will be the last IP which we pass with this command. Okay, so that will be about it for processing the IP addresses, and let's just increase this to 26, which will be a smaller number than what 24 is. Okay, so you can see perfectly what is it. So now we have all the IP addresses in the IP range, and then we will now, in our next section, test which IP address or which device is connected to what IP address on the network, and then get all that information out. Thank you guys, and see you later. Bye.